Love, light, and blessings. This is Shamanic High Priestess here, and I wanted to talk to you guys about a video response to a request that I had from one of my lovely subscribers, and she knows who she is. And I have mentioned a couple of times already on this channel that I have an autistic son. And she asked me about that. And I told her, because she asked me some questions, and I told her it would be easier if I made a video response. Like, how do I cope with my son's autism? So first I want to start off by saying I have 2 daughters and 2 sons. My oldest and my youngest son. So my second born and my second youngest of my children, which are both boys, they both have autism. Now my oldest has he's more high functioning, so his autism is more social. So with him, I didn't know anything about autism. We struggled when he first started school. In kindergarten, he wasn't able to finish kindergarten because of behavior issues. The principal would tell me things like, he's the worst behaved child I've seen in 25 years, and would take pictures of him without my permission and just continuously tell me how horrible of a parent I must be because my son was out of control. I tried everything with my oldest son: timeouts, punishments, spankings. I did not abuse my child, but I did spank my child and things like that. Nothing worked. And so it got to the point that I didn't know what to do. They were giving me diagnosis like ADHD. They were giving me diagnosis emotionally disturbed, all these things. Years went by. He went to so many different schools. 3rd grade alone, he had 3 different schools. He had to transfer out of a regular school into a special ed school. I remember the first day of school when he was still in his old school because the transfer hadn't gone through. The principal shouted out in front of everybody, I thought he was going to transfer out. So she was constantly humiliating me. I had parents wanting to fight me, telling me how horrible my child was. I mean, it was just a very depressive period for me. This is when I came into my spirituality. For most of my childhood, I had a very hard childhood, so I was trying to seek something outside of myself, and I leaned towards Christianity. One of my neighbors took me to church, and I became a very fundamentalist. I have a Pentecostal background. I'm not saying anything against Pentecostal people. This is just my experience. And the things that my mom practiced was seen as bad. And so I turned my back on my mom's spirituality for many, many years until my adult life. I come from a 5th generation shaman, Espiritista family, working with African and Arawak spirits. And after that, when I saw there was no medical intervention for my son, I turned to spirituality, and my mom started teaching me the ways of our families. And I became a 5th generation practitioner, and I've been in this path for, it's going to be 13 years now, before my second youngest was born. So she taught me a lot of healing things. She taught me how to spiritually protect myself. And I remember because I was married to a very religious man, not that he practiced so much, but more so like his dad was a minister. And to this day, he still has certain beliefs. So I don't really talk to him about my spirituality. At this time, we're divorced. So I don't talk about it, but at the same time, I'm not in the broom closet, if that makes sense. But I don't like, whoa, look at, because, you know, I'm from the old school too, like, unless I'm in YouTube or like someone in the same path, I really don't talk about my spirituality too much. So my first spiritual place would be my closet. I had a closet in that military apartment that I had. My ex-husband was in the military. And I literally had a candle on the floor and a book of prayers that's been passed down from my family and things like that. And my mom taught me very basic things, and I started practicing in that closet. They had a lock. Candles would go off when spouse was around. That way he didn't know what was going on with that guest closet. And he always wondered why there was a lock on it, but kind of didn't pay attention to it anymore. I just told him it was storage stuff, dumb stuff in there, whatever the case may be. And years went by, we got divorced. By that time I had my second child, and I was really into my spirituality. I had a very difficult labor with my second youngest. By the time my son was in 5th grade, he was acting out. I ended up going to a domestic violence shelter due to my ex-husband being a war veteran. I'm not saying all war veterans are abusive. I'm just saying he did see a lot of things in combat. And he did a lot of things that he wouldn't remember. He had really bad post-traumatic stress disorder, and there wasn't really a lot of help out there at that time. And he pretty much didn't get the help that he needed, and it turned into an unsafe environment for me and my children, so I had to leave. And he's much better now. And he works for the Department of Defense, and he's doing really, really well. But those were very dark times, those last 2 to 3 years of my marriage. And I really tried, and he just wouldn't get help. And like I said, I had to put the safety of my children before myself, or what my feelings were at the time. And so, I left, and being in the domestic violence shelter, I was a nurse. I have a nursing background. I am college educated. I had to give up my career, and I went on public assistance, and I lost everything. I couldn't go for child support because at the time it was an unsafe situation. I had to go into hiding, so all my friends and family, I lost touch with most people except my mom. And basically, in the shelter, I was still praying to the spirits and the ancestors, and they granted my prayers, and I was able to get my very own first apartment through Section 8 at the time. And I was very excited about my little house, me and my 3 beautiful children. And that's when my second oldest child got his diagnosis that he was autistic, because again, before then he had all these other misdiagnoses. Once he got his diagnosis, he was able to receive the right treatment. And a child that was kicked out of multiple schools, suspended, expelled, transferred, special ed school, he went from that to actually becoming an honor roll student and doing well and getting a pizza party because he was so well behaved, and all the violence that he was doing, because he would sometimes be violence towards me and things like that. I had to take parenting classes, and I found resources through the community, such as support groups for autism and things like that. I had a program at that place. I'm not going to say what it is. If you want any deeper details, I can message you private about that. But yes, they were like a community outreach program that dealt with kids with special needs, and they would have a para that would go with him to school. So it was one-on-one para. They will be with your specific child during the school day. And that really helped my oldest son a lot. And also having community services. As far as my second youngest, he had more of a severe autism. I noticed even when I was still married, he was very delayed in walking and speaking. And when he finally got his diagnosis, he was 4 years old. No, I'm sorry, he was 5 years old. He was already in a special ed preschool because he was 4 years old. And my son, I remember when they did his intelligence test, because with my older son, he didn't have the academics part of it. He's very smart. My son right now is a junior in high school, and he's in the top 12% of his school. and he's autistic. So there's different kinds of autism. And again, like his behavior is better now. Like he's an excellent student. Schools adore him. He got the right help and he was okay. He has the kind of like curable autism. With my second youngest, it was a whole different thing. Like his birth was very difficult. And I remember when he was tested, he was 4 years old and he had the vocabulary of an 18-month-old. And I remember all the different medicines they tried to give my son. Because he's here, but he's not here, if that makes sense. He did get help, and there's a lot of things that they said my son couldn't do that he could do. Like he got potty trained really late. He was like 4. And when they tested his IQ, he was 4 years old with the IQ of an 18-month-old, with the vocabulary of an 18-month-old. And that just devastated me, because I knew his kind of autism is one that is going to be a lifelong struggle for me. And I worried. I feel guilty for saying this, but with my second son, I was like, what did I do? It was so bad that my son has to suffer because of me. What did I do in my pregnancy? Did I not eat well enough? Did I not take care of myself enough? I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink, right? Sorry. And then, I did a lot of reading. And, he was able to get services through the school. I always advocate that parents are our greatest advocates. And I made peace with the fact that he's in special ed and that he needs that. He's in the type of special ed that's for learning support. And even though right now he's going to be 12, everything that my son, they said he couldn't do, he's doing. He learned to read. And we're at 3rd grade reading level now, almost 4th grade. We're still struggling with learning how to tie his shoes. He tries so hard. The physical therapist pretty much gave up on that. But the way that I cope with it is I accept him for who he is. I know what his limitations are. And when I went to visit my mom, which I'm going to make another video about that visit, she said something really nice. Because now my son is getting to an age where, like 2 years ago, he never knew he was different. And he was on a school bus. And I'm not going to offend anybody with this, but this is what they said. So if anybody's offended by this language, I apologize. It's not what I feel. He says, "Mommy, am I retarded?" And when he said that to me, like, I felt like somebody stabbed me in the heart. And I was like, I can't believe that someone would teach their kids to say things like that. And I said, I'm not going to say what his name is, but I said, "Sweetie, you're not retarded." I said, "You're special. You were born special, and you're special. Like, you flap your hands because you get excited differently than everybody else does. And that makes you special when you're waving your hands around like this and you're so excited, and how you just go up to a random stranger and say you love them because he's the most affectionate little boy you will ever meet. He is the sweetest boy. He's such a pure soul and spirit." And I said, those kids are just ignorant because their mommy and daddies told them to be ignorant, because you are special. I said, you're autistic and that makes you special. Your brain sees things differently. And when my mom told me this weekend, you're the most patient mom I know. And I know there's a lot of patience mom out there, but I'm just saying what my mom said. She said, I feel like Creator sometimes picks a very special mommy and daddy to have autistic kids because they require a lot of patience. So they just pick just a special person. That made me feel better. Even if it's true or not, like that made me feel better. Like, okay, maybe that's true. It does require so much patience. But I just learned not to care about what people think when my almost 12-year-old has a tantrum that a 4 or 5-year-old will have. Over some things that are simple, like too much lighting or too much noise, or him wanting that candy, or the routine changes all of a sudden and he's just flailing and getting a tantrum. I learned not to care what everybody else thinks. If they stare, if they point, I learned to ignore the snickers and the laughs at the pointing that sometimes you'll be surprised that adults do. And I just learned to see the beauty in my child. My child. And I know all mothers think that. But I just think my sons, both of them, are so special. And if I had to choose between them and a different kind of child, I can finally say I would choose them just the way they are. And it's hard sometimes, and it's a struggle, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And don't be afraid to ask for help, and look into your community services and your support groups, and love your kids unconditionally, and understand that when they're getting a tantrum, they're not trying to be bad or misbehave. They just have sensory issues, and they have different ways of processing things. And you know, I worry about my son's future sometimes, like what's going to happen to him when I'm not here anymore. But watching the way the kids, my other kids, love their brother so much, a part of me is like, I know one of them will take care of their brother. Because with my younger son, he's going to require that someone looks after him even when he's an adult. And those are just some of the special challenges sometimes people may have with their disabled children. So much love, light, and blessings. And sorry I got a little emotional on this video. I hope this video helped. And please like and subscribe, and leave a comment about anything that I talked about in this video, or share a story about a special soul that you know. Love you guys. Until the next video, which I'm gonna most likely make a video either tonight, right after this one, or tomorrow. I don't know yet. Much love, light, and blessings.